brief overview of my thoughts on the books. So I'll do half of them this time and half of them in the next video, so make sure you watch both of those ones. Let's get to the video. One of the books that I read this month was The Fish Girl by Mirandy Rouault. So this is a little novella about an Indonesian girl and basically a small snippet of her life and basically what happens to her and how she's basically mistreated. It was a very heavy read. It wasn't what I expected it to be. I would say that if you are triggered by things like rape and abuse and things like that, you probably shouldn't read this novella because it is pretty heavy on that. But it was a very profound and beautiful read, even though it was quite tragic. So this was The Fish Girl. The next book is The Boy, the Mole, the Fox and the Horse. This is by Charlie Mackesy. This is a children's book, but it's more than a children's book. It's meant to be basically a children's book for all ages. So it is basically a little story that follows this boy and all these creatures that he meets along the way and befriends, and they basically all have these really profound life lessons that they each share with each other as they go through this little journey together. It's really beautiful. It teaches you a lot and it's really relatable to adults, but I think it also helps to prepare children for kind of the realities of life and little kind of key bits of advice that they can take with them. So it was really good. I highly recommend this one. Then we have The Thursday Murder Club by Richard Osman. I do have a standalone review for this book and the next book, which is the sequel to it. It was a brilliant read. It was a book about a group of 4 people in a retirement village, and basically they go out and solve crimes that are normally cold cases, but during this novel someone in the town gets murdered and they basically get hot on the trail and try and find out who the murderer is. It's really, really funny. I loved this book. I gave this a 5 out of 5 stars. Next we have the follow-up novel, so the sequel, also by Richard Osman. This one's called The Man Who Died Twice. This one basically follows the same group of 4 elderly people in this retirement home, but one of the characters' past basically comes back to the present, and they get kind of thrown into this wild case that they need to solve. There's spies, there's mystery, there's lots of comedy. It was a really, really good read as well. I gave this one a 5 out of 5 stars as well. Here we have V.E. Schwab's The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. I really did like this book. I did skip small parts of it because it's really long, and I felt that there were a few sections where there was kind of irrelevant information to the plot, like little bits of backstory and like side story and stuff like that that wasn't overly entertaining to me, so I just skipped those bits. This one basically follows this girl named Addie, and she is from the 1800s, and she basically hates her life. She's being forced to marry someone she doesn't want to marry. So she runs into the forest and she basically makes a deal with the devil to basically be able to be free and live basically forever. And it follows her deal with the devil, and then basically in exchange for this deal, no one remembers who she is. So when she meets a person, if they walk out of the room, they forget who she is. And basically her journey of survival through that. She then also, like a big major part of this, which isn't a spoiler because it's on the blurb, is she basically ends up meeting 300 years later a boy who does remember her, and kind of it follows their relationship. Yeah, it does have a lot of romance. It's also got a bit of like sapphic romance as well. It was a really good read. Like I said, there was probably a few bits that I would have cut out of it. That's just my personal preference, but I really, really liked this book. If I didn't have to have skip some of those bits, I would have given it a 5 out of 5. So because I did end up skipping some plot that kind of was a bit boring to me, like backstory and things, I did end up giving it a 4.5 out of 5 stars. It was a really good read. Here we have Piranesi by Susanna Clarke. This book threw me for a loop. I wasn't expecting it to be what it was about, but it was really interesting. Like, I finished the whole thing. I did like it. I gave it like a 3.5 in the end because it wasn't my favourite. I don't know if this kind of thing is really like the style that the book kind of follows is my cup of tea, but I did enjoy it, but it wouldn't be something I would ever reread, but I definitely recommend it. It is basically about this guy named Piranesi, and he's stuck in this labyrinth of all these halls, and they're just hallways. There's no actual rooms, they're just continuous hallways, and they have all these different statues in it and everything. And to his immediate knowledge, he has always been stuck in this labyrinth, and he's a child of the labyrinth. And basically, as far as he knows, it's just him and this one other member in this labyrinth, and then basically they stumble across these strangers and his kind of whole world gets turned upside down. It was really amazing, but it was a bit slow, like pacing wise, which I think is why I only gave it a 3.5 out of 5. But I would definitely recommend it because it's nothing like I've ever read before. So the last book I'm going to show you guys today for this part of the October reads is The Night Cycles by Erin Morgenstern. I flippin' loved this book. It was phenomenal. I gave this a 5 out of 5 stars. It's probably my new favourite book. I think it's succeeded even my previous favourite book, which was George Orwell's 1984. I just love this book. I love everything about this book. I love the pacing. I love the story. I love the characters. I love the concept. It's basically if Tim Burton invented a magical circus. That's what it is. And it's phenomenal. And then it's also black and white and swirly, and there's bits of magic, and there's like good romance, but it's also like not really the focus, but like it's just that touch of romance that you want. There's no like sex scenes or anything, so it's not like, I would say it's probably G-rated, maybe PG-rated at most. I loved it. It ended the way I wanted it to. It had twists and turns that I wanted it to. It was perfect. I think this is a beautiful piece of literature, and I think it's perfect. And basically, it follows this girl who is the daughter of a magician, but a magician as in real magic magician. However, he pretends to be a magician how we know them, so they just do illusions because he wants to use his magic, but he enjoys basically tricking the people, so he makes his real magic look like fake magic basically. And he ends up having this daughter who also has this magical gift, and he basically forces her into this competition against this other magician and his apprentice. And so her whole life becomes this competition, and she doesn't know who she's versing. All she knows is she's just got to train. And basically the setting of this competition is the circus. And it's incredible. Please read this. Everybody, please read this. It is beautiful. Mwah, love it. Thank you. Please read. 5 out of 5 stars. Thank you. Okay, so that was all for the part 1 of my October reads. Let me know if you've read any of those in the comments below. Let me know your thoughts on those books. Let me know if you're going to pick any of those books up, because a lot of them are really, really good. I feel like I had a really good month of reads this month. There was a couple that will be coming up in the part 2 that I wasn't a super fan of, but for the most part, I had pretty good reads. So stay tuned for part 2, which will be coming out in a few days, and I hope that you guys have a great rest of your week. Bye!